Hello everyone! My name is Katerina, and today at Art School of SF Bay we're going to learn a bit about the history of patterns in textiles, and we will learn to make our own pattern. Patterns are repeated decorative designs that fit seamlessly together over and over again. People have been using patterns to artistically enhance furniture, pottery, buildings, and, of course, clothing during all of human history. When looking at Paleolithic cave art, it is easy to imagine that decorative patterns came into existence along with human ability to create clothing and homes. Various repeating designs have been discovered on ancient artifacts all over the world. Textiles are fabrics often used for clothing, and such fabrics have traditionally reflected the patterns and designs of the cultures that made them. For example, we often find wave-like patterns in cultures that live near water, like those in ancient Japan, as well as Greece and the Polynesian islands. These groups were all inspired by the repeating waves. We see patterns all over the world. Textile patterns changed over time. During the Renaissance, woven textiles made of silk and precious metal threads were an expression of power, wealth, and taste. During the Baroque era, patterns grew in complexity, and during the Rococo period, patterns were very floral, swirly, and ornate. The Art Nouveau period used a lot of organic lines in their patterns, and Art Deco saw very mechanical-looking designs. Modern designers draw from this rich history. For example, Joseph Frank's work includes a lot of organic lines and draws inspiration from nature. Now that we've learned about some of the history of patterns, let's make our own pattern. Let's start with a scratch paper and a pencil. Before we commit to any specific designs, let's play with shapes and lines for a little bit, opening our imagination to the vast possibilities of design. I like to keep a few examples of my favorite patterns in sight for inspiration. Often a pattern emerges as we place various lines, some curvy, some straight, and simple shapes together. I'm working in a square because this shape repeats very well. You can think of the repetition of floor tiles. As you can see, by repeating the square over and over again, I can create what looks like a textile pattern. Now I've created my final sketch. I call it the bee elephant, and I created a square with the sketch that I involved a little bit more. Now, if you want to create a square, one way to do it is just take the corner of your paper, your sketch paper, decide how big you want your square to be, fold it, then just draw around here and here, and you'll actually get yourself a square of any size you want. So if you want a square this big, you can cut out a square this big. This is one way you can quickly modulate what kind of size you want your square to be. I won't suggest making a tiny square like this because I'm going to be using this as my final. I'm going to trim it. I would probably fit 1, 2, 3, 4 of these in here. Maybe even more, maybe 6, depends. But I wouldn't use tiny ones because then I would have to fit probably more or have a very limited amount of squares here. For these corners, I want to make sure that each side is the same. One way to do it is to simply measure how far it goes. And then I'm going to connect these dots. Now I want to transfer this over to my final. So what I'm going to do is trace the shape of this square a couple times. So now the hard part is tracing. Now how will I trace? Well, I'll have to do something called transferring. Is when you flip this over, and you can use a crayon on the back or a pencil. I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm just going to quickly cover this whole area. You don't need to press super hard. As long as there's a layer of this graphite, you should be okay. Alright, so I'm going to fit this piece over here, right into the box shape that I've created. And I need for it to stay still and not move around. For that reason, I'm going to put 2 pieces of tape on 2 sides. As you can see, there's a faint outline of the bee elephant. I think as I keep going, I would have to draw the graphite, put some more graphite on the back again. So when I lifted this off the second time, you can see that these are starting to match. So another pattern will start to emerge over here. You'll see a square emerge in this space here. I'm going to put a little bit of graphite on the back again so that I can keep transferring this image over and over again. Alright, here we go. I'm going to use watercolor for these patterns. If you want to, you can use acrylics. Either way, be careful to point the brush at the lines as you color in so you don't paint outside of them. I want to show you a second method of creating a tiling pattern. Now, not all your images that you want to tile will tile perfectly. For example, this one did because it all matched. This piece right here matched to this piece and so on. So it created a matching pattern. But some pieces have long sinewy parts like this and they don't quite match to the other side. For example, if I wanted to put the same piece over here, as you can see, this is too thin to match to this. This will go nowhere on this side and so on. So I have to do something to this first before I could create a tile. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half like this. And I can cut it in half or I can fold it and rip it. If you choose to rip it, be very, very careful because you want to refold and fold multiple times in order to get a clean line through. Once I separate it into the first two, I'm going to immediately put these on their opposite sides. So like this. I'm going to put it right like this. So it used to be this way, right? Now I'm going to bring every piece that I cut apart onto its opposite side, like this. Essentially, what we want to do is redraw the center. So all the pieces on the outside will tile, but the center will be changed and work together. So I'm going to cut it or rip it into halves again along this line. So again, now I have to switch them. So this one will move up here. Now everything is reversed from the original image. What I've created could technically tile from these sides now because as you can see this one will just perfectly fit here. But the problem is the center. We have a lot of pieces that don't quite go anywhere. For example, over here we have a piece that doesn't quite end. We have a piece here that doesn't match. We have a piece here that seems to not quite match to the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is tape it up. I'm putting the tape on the back so that I can draw on the front. So now I can finish my design by correcting everywhere that I didn't have something. So for example, as you can see over here, this line seems to just abruptly stop. So I can continue the design. Might even add something in the center, like an extra little piece. So maybe I'll have another bee-like thing right here. There we go. And that's, let's see, maybe I'll add one more sinewy thing right here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the floating elephants, the elephant bees. I'm going to transfer this part over to here. I'm going to pile it in this direction so I can fit 4. As always, I'm going to go over the outline. So now I've transferred all but 3 of the pieces, and I'm about to transfer this one. As you can see, everything matches. All the vines match to each other. All the pieces that swirl match to each other. Basically, I've started with a block, and now I can create a giant pattern out of it. And it didn't matter that at first this was not really working as a transfer, because now it does. Now that I've inverted all the 4 pieces, they can actually match because I changed the center to work together as well. Now I'm going to watercolor it and show you guys what it looks like once I finish. As you can see, you can make a pattern out of any design. Thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait for you to create your own amazing patterns. Bye guys!